Edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Very, very disappointing today. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about, so without any further ado, let's crack straight in. G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Wrap Show, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Just myself into the centre of the screen. Not a very happy day in Crowland, unfortunately. A very promising start and then it just all went to shit, basically. So, which was very disappointing. So never mind. We move on, and joining me tonight as usual to talk all about it is Macca. How you going, Mac?
Very good, thanks, mate. Except for the footy, of course. But, you know, we live on. We have to live on.
Yeah, we do, but it doesn't mean we have to like it.
No, that's true.
Oh, goodness me. It was a struggle, wasn't it? It was a real struggle.
Well, it was. I think the thing that really hurt was the part that it was a game we could have won and perhaps even should have won, but we found a way not to win.
Yes, indeed.
And that to me is the most disappointing part of it all, really. And, you know, we'll talk about individuals later because there were a couple of individuals in particular who helped make that situation. But, it was a game that we probably let slip.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Look, before we move into it, g'day to everyone who's joined us on Discord after the bye round, and a bit of a misfire with Tuesday Night Live last Tuesday. We'll be back this Tuesday, of course. Like I said, g'day to everyone also on YouTube, and also anyone who's watching on Twitch as well. Great to have you on board. Great also, Macca, we've had a few new patrons this week as well, which is fantastic. Great to see. So thanks to all of those people who support us on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/AFL and every little contribution is very much appreciated. Right, Mac. I didn't even get a chance to bloody set up my little screen for Macca's 15 minutes of fame tonight. So we're going to have to wing it a little bit tonight. But that's all right.
We can do that.
I'm sure we'll work it out. Let's have a look. Right, Mac, your 15 minutes of fame starts now. And on Thursday night we had Brisbane convincing winners over the Cats, 13-16-94 to Geelong 7-8-50, a margin there of 44 points. Geelong falling from their previous win.
Well, you know, if you watch the way they beat the Dogs last week and then watch their performance against Brisbane this week, you'd say, is this the same side? Because Brisbane jumped them in the first quarter and actually won every quarter after that. So it was a pretty poor performance by Geelong. Zorko was outstanding for Brisbane, and Lockie Neal, who got a nasty blow on his shoulder in the first quarter, and I think he might have even popped it, not sure. And he came back and he actually found his form in the second half. And for Geelong, the big three up forward, they weren't the big three. They got 2 goals between them. And it just was Brisbane all night, and Geelong no chance. And I don't know, you know, when you think about who's going to win the flag, well, last week we thought Geelong looked like a team that could. And this week they look like a team that couldn't, and so we'll just have to wait and see, mate.
Isn't it? Opening up a bit. Brisbane look pretty good when they're on song. They share the ball around, and they've got a good mix up forward. I don't like the look of them. I think they're a bit vulnerable sometimes down back, but when they get it going up forward, it's really good.
Yeah, I think that's good. Good summation of it, Fiend.
Yep, now Friday night, St Kilda 9862 to the hapless Tigers. The hapless Tigers. Now, we've been waiting for the Tigers just to, kick it up a gear, Macca, and just, show us what they're made of. Is this a signal that maybe they're not on song and this isn't their year?
Yeah, look, I was talking to Mrs. Mack about this, and you wonder whether the Hardwick business off the field has got any effect on the field, and because doesn't seem like a very cohesive team at all the way it played.
Now.
No, the Saints actually pantsed them, absolutely pantsed them.
Yep.
And Ryder Marshall dominated the rucks. Richmond just couldn't get hold of the ball. And the midfield, they absolutely dominated the midfield. The Saints did. The guy Dunstan that the bloody AFL wouldn't let us trade. He
had a bit of a game, didn't he?
A boomer, absolute boomer. I think he had 37 disposed.
Yeah.
Yep, and Steele, he's always good, and Crouch had a good game for them as well in the midfield. So what could have been for us and what was for us, so they both did very well. And for Richmond, well, all they got out of it really was injuries. That Boulder did a knee, and one of the other guys, he did his ankle, Broad. So, look, if they're still a V8, they're only firing on 3 cylinders, and you got to wonder, are they only a 6-cylinder team now?
Well, it's still a bit to go, but they're back in the pack now in terms of fighting for that last 8 spots. So they're not going to have it all their own way, and certainly if they make finals, they're going to be doing it the hard way. So anyway, let's push on. Fremantle had a good win over Collingwood, 14-7-91. Fremantle by 12 points over Collingwood, 12-7-79.
Yep. Well, welcome to coaching, Robert Harvey, with a loss. Very competitive game, and at times you'd think that Collingwood were going to get run over Freo, but you've got to hand it to Freo. No Fife, and to some degree, a bunch of no names. And that's not quite true. They've got some good names, but there's a lot of young players there that a lot of people don't know a lot about, but they do have a crack, and that's I think there's a difference. The ruck duel was interesting because Grundy's have been the dominant ruckman for a very long time now, but that Darcy, he's going to be a good ruckman in the long term. He gave Grundy a very good challenge in the centre. Look, really, they were both teams really playing for pride, and Freo can be very proud of their performance. They were too good.
Agreed, Mac. Agreed. 100% was a good win. Now, speaking of teams in the doldrums. North Melbourne 9-18-72 beating Gold Coast Suns 9-9-63 by 9 points.
Well,
Don't say it.
I have to say
Don't say it. We say it every week.
No, I was about to say I had the pleasure of not seeing the game.
Yeah.
Thank God. And we do say it every week, but the bottom team beating the Suns says it all really about where they're at. And I just wanted to quote 2 players that Lukosius 14 disposals, Rankin 7.
Yeah.
They went at 2 and 3. If you wanted to trade for them and you wanted to pay a fair price, what would you pay for them now, Fiend?
Probably a late first round for Lukosius. I wouldn't pay any more than a high second rounder for Rankin. Yeah,
well, they've slipped at least down to that level, and if they keep playing, then they'll probably slip further. Because Lukosius is in his 3rd year; he should be booming. But anyhow, enough of them.
Well, given his billing, he should be booming. You're absolutely right, Mac. There's no reason why he shouldn't be really taking the competition by storm. And we rubbish Gold Coast, but they draft these kids in good faith. And we discussed this last week, whether it's a development issue or whether it's facilities or whether it's resources, who knows? But they just keep burning through top draft picks, high draft picks. And until they work out why that is, then they're going to continue to be middle of the road. They've got some quality talent in there. but they're killing kids' careers, and those kids just aren't thriving in that environment.
No, the kind of thing you said there, that the middle of the road, they're not even that thing. They're less than middle of the road. Yeah, I think enough of them really, because we can only say the same thing every week, that they are career killers, really.
Yep, very true, Mac. No doubt about it. All right, Port Adelaide unconvincing in the end. 10 points over Sydney, 12-9-81 to Sydney 10-11-71. Should have won by more, Port. And yes, they've now beaten a top 8 side, but certainly the worst of the top 8 teams. Or maybe Richmond might argue with that, but certainly not convincing by any stretch by the Power.
No, and as you know, the shower of rain came, and I said to Mrs. Mack, it would be the closest some of their supporters have got to a shower in a long time, I would think. But they had they had a bit of a struggle on their hand. Sydney were very, very honest as usual, and in fact even hit the front with a few minutes to go. But no, Port, I will say this, that they do try very hard, Pete. I just don't think they've got class. They're good enough to beat the lesser teams, and because they're pretty even around the...
I think they've got class, Macca. I think Connor Rosie's class. Travis Boak, I'd still call a classy player. They've got a couple, missing and all the rest of it, as any other team has. I don't think they lack class. I think they lack cohesion.
Yeah, well, I just think that there are a couple of weaknesses in their side. They're not the complete side. That's what I'm really getting at. Wines is a good player. Boat's a good player. Gibson had probably one of his best games for the year. They still rely on a few to do it all, I think. Look, I will say this: they will fight on, but I cannot possibly see them winning a flag. I just can't. They've got this thing that they're going to win 3 flags in 5 years. If they said 3 flags in 5 decades, they might get closer to it.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're close either. The Essendon Football Club, if they haven't sent a please explain to the umpiring department, I don't know what's going to stop them, because they got absolutely pantsed by the umpires against Melbourne. Melbourne getting up by 11 points in the end, 9-14-68 to Essendon, 8 goals, 9-57. But gee whiz, Macca, as a neutral watcher, watching that game with no skin in the game, by goodness, Essendon got destroyed by the umpires.
Well, I have to agree with you. I just thought it was just me thinking that, because they've got beaten by 11 points, but I reckon the umpiring decisions were worth far more than that. There isn't, and the crowd went berserk as they went off after the game at the umpires, right to the very last second as they disappeared down their rabbit hole. And they were terrible. If it was doubtful, it went to Melbourne, and even if it wasn't there, it went to Melbourne. I just thought Essendon got a lousy go. And I do enjoy watching Essendon play, because they do play with a lot of flair, a lot of dash. They have a crack. And one thing I do like watching about him is Merritt. I think he is a beautiful player to watch. 41 disposals, and nearly every one of those finds a teammate or sets up an attack or gets them out of trouble. He's just a brilliant player to watch, and they've got other good players as well. I just enjoy watching them, and it was a pity they didn't win.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Mac? Melbourne better or worse with Viney in the side?
I thought they were worse with him in the side, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's why I asked the question. I thought that he made them look less dynamic in the midfield, to be honest with you.
And that's exactly why you're right, is because Petrarca in particular, when he's got it in his hand, he's a burst player, and then things happen. Oliver, he's so persistent, and he just keeps working and makes things happen. Whereas Viney, he gets it and he just slows the game down a bit. And
Matt Crouch like.
Yes, yeah, rather like that. That would be a very good example. So I would think they were better off without him, actually.
Yeah. Miley having a fair old whinge in the bloody chat there. My lead speaker should be working, so I don't know whether maybe you've got a slow connection or something. But you can certainly move to YouTube and chat there, or hop into Discord and you're in Discord. If the problems persist, send me a DM afterwards. We might be able to chat about it. Now, Mac, Hawthorn doing us a bit of a favour. Giants look to be all over that early, but Hawthorn in the end by 18 points, 13-12-90 to 11-6-72.
We talk about problems with the Gold Coast, and I think GWS are a little bit the same in the sense they've got... I really don't think that their coaches gets the best out of them. They played very good football in the first quarter, and it really looked like how far it was going to be for the game. But after quarter time, GWS did not increase their efforts at all. They sort of just stayed at the same plateau, and Hawthorn lifted dramatically, and all of a sudden it was a competition with Hawthorn wrestling their ascendancy, and GWS really didn't fight back very well. That's something I didn't like about them at all.
Agreed.
Hawthorn, they've got a couple of good players coming through, young players. One that really stood out for me was Will Day, who's a South Australian boy. He was very good for Hawthorn. We'd love to get him back for us. And they also, their first round draft pick made his debut, Denver Granger Barras. We haven't got any double barrel names, have we? Made his debut.
Don't think so.
No, I don't think we have. They made his debut, and he showed that he'll be up to it. And look, overall...
Paul Turnover Seedsman?
Beg pardon?
Paul Turnover Seedsman? Is that a name?
We'll come to that one soon. You're a bit of a sniper with Seedsman. But with Hawthorn, no, look, I don't know. They're not that great a side, but look, they won the game, and GWS had a lot on the line. They had a position in the 8 waiting for them, just waiting for them.
Yeah.
Yet they still couldn't do it. Do it.
Yeah, and that's the point, Mac. The fact that the Giants had it all to play for. Richmond gave them an opening. Sydney gave them an opening, and they snuffed it. Absolutely snuffed it.
They did.
In fact, Richmond are very lucky with Essendon and the Giants both losing on the weekend. Now, Western Bulldogs convincingly over West Coast by 55 points in the end, 13-20-98. Could have been a lot more. 6-7-43 to West Coast. I didn't see the game, but it sounds like one that West Coast just might want to throw away.
Well, West Coast aren't that good, Pete, and I have to be honest and say I had one bet on the football for the weekend, and I backed the Dogs because I thought they will be far too good for West Coast. I didn't have the courage to go. I thought at one stage of going over the 10-goal mark, which had a very nice payout on it, but I didn't have the courage. So I just settled for the win because I knew that would happen. I was that positive because I don't think West Coast have got that much fighting resistance in them and they're not going to play any particular role in the finals, even if they are in the finals. They're not going to win it. No.
Yeah, agreed, Mac. I agree with that. It's average at the moment. Going on here, we've got some music going. Average at the moment by West Coast. They just don't look like it at all. And I feel like they're how can I put this? I feel like that they're having trouble getting up for games that they don't necessarily. It's not that they don't need to win them, but I don't know. It just must be very frustrating to coach them at the moment.
I don't think they fire against the big boys at all. And the big boys, when you have a look at their record, I'm not sure that they've beaten a good side this year either. They may have, but they've failed very badly against some of them.
Yeah, true. All right, let's have a look at the ladder quickly. So we have top 8. We have Melbourne now on 48 points. Western Bulldogs on 44. Both teams clear. Brisbane and Port, along with Geelong, on 40 points. Brisbane have pulled in the 4, Geelong just outside with inferior percentage. The Swans hanging in there on 32 points with the Eagles, neither looking convincing as we mentioned. Richmond looking even less convincing at the moment on 28 points. Then we have, outside of the 8, we also have Fremantle on 28 points, just sneaking up. What?
Fremantle? Well, nobody rates them, and I'm one of those people that never rated them. Yeah. Wouldn't it be ironical if they ended up in the 8?
It would be quite ironic. The Giants on 26 points, Essendon and St Kilda on 24 points. Carlton now above Adelaide on 20 points. Adelaide also on 20 points. Collingwood on 16 points with the Suns and Hawthorn and North Melbourne now on 10 points. So we're only a game out of pick 2, Mac. So today was an excellent result for us. An excellent result for us because Collingwood, the Suns and the Hawks keep winning, and we'll be down there for pick 2, and just maybe we might be able to do something with young Mr. Horn. Oh, Mac has gone away. All right. Don't forget, everyone in the Discord chat, Mac, you might have to either plug something in or restart or do something, but you've disappeared there, mate, for a minute. But don't forget, anyone in the Discord chat, if you want to have your say about today's game or anything else that we're talking about, then please just get in the live studio audience there. We have 14 in there, which is fantastic. And all you need to do is click on the little hand icon at the bottom of the screen, and when I see it, I'll bring you in and you can have a chat. Mac, are you back? Right. Mackie, you might have to, I don't know what you're doing there, but you might have to get out and come back in. All right, so while we just wait for Macca, why don't we just tee up the Adelaide game, because it was a bit of a schmozzle, the Adelaide game, I've got to admit. Very disappointing in the end after a very promising start. Adelaide, 10 goals, 13, 73, going down by 10 points in the end. Too little too late from the Crows, and Carlton getting up over the line, 12, 11, 83, 10 points there. Now, I don't know what people in the chat think about the game, but I felt particularly aggrieved that the momentum killer for the game, notwithstanding what might have happened in the second half, but the momentum killer for the game was our senior players making silly skill errors at critical moments when we had momentum, and we could have actually gone in at quarter time about 4 or 5 goals up with Carlton not even scoring, and as it turned out, that was not the way it ended up at quarter time. Carlton went in with a little bit of momentum, and as a consequence, they were able to get up over the line in the end. So I don't know how you guys feel on chat, and if anyone's on chat that wants to just fill the void here while Mac is organising himself. Oh, you're back, mate. I was just saying that, in my opinion, the momentum killer was some bad mistakes by senior players at the end of that first quarter.
Well, there were some shockers there, actually, but not just even the first quarter, though. We made some pretty bad errors all through the game. I mean, young McHenry, for example.
No, but they did, absolutely, but they're kids, right? This was when we were in front, when we had control of the game in the first quarter, Macca, and an errant handball by Sloane, a missed easy mark by Luke Brown, a couple of other missed handballs, and all of a sudden, Carlton are back in the game.
Sloane did a couple of baddies.
Yep.
And that was, I can't argue with that. Sloane, I can think about 2 handballs that Sloane did that were pretty bad. His usage of the ball was pretty poor in the first quarter. I thought he got a little bit better as the game went on, but look, we really should have had a very good lead at quarter time, and
we could have been 4 or 5 goals up, and they could have been goalless and almost scoreless at quarter time. Mac, what a difference that would have made.
Well, massive difference. That's the difference between winning and losing, isn't it?
Instead of that, Instead of that, we're a goal up, and they've got all the momentum, and they go on and kick 8 goals, 4 in the second quarter to our 3 goals, and we can't stop them.
Look, that second quarter was probably as bad a quarter as we've played for a very long time, because we went back to all of our bad habits in that second quarter. Every time we got the ball in the second quarter, we went forward, say we got the ball around about half back or a little bit close to centre, we were kicking it high in the air, and as we've always said, landing it just over the centre, around the half forward, where the ball just gets swept straight back over your head again. And we just did that countless times in that second quarter. And instead of also, in that second quarter, Carlton's forward line spread beautifully, whereas when we went forward, there's a clump. So, just every bad thing I can think of that we do wrong, we did in that second quarter.
Yeah, it was a uncoordinated mess, and our midfield stopped running, and our half-forward line stopped defending, and they just kept bouncing it out, and we just gave them the corridor time and time again. And, Geordie Butts had a bit of a shocker, but I tell you what, Harry Mackay and a few others got it on a plate in that second quarter, and when you've got an opposition midfield running the ball like they were, without much pressure, you got no hope as a defender.
No, I don't hold anything against Geordie Butts for those Harry Mackay positions, because that ball was being delivered to him on a plate because there was no pressure on the people delivering the ball. So, I think Butts, whoever you put there, they're not going to stop that.
No. Now, just speaking of which, let's have a look at player lineups, because, of course, that's what we do to start off this discussion. Mac, what do you think of selection?
It wasn't horrible.
Pardon me.
It was about what I expected they would do.
Well, I thought they made an error. Every time we've gone in with one tall in defence, we've lost. And again, we hung Geordie Butts out. We had no alternatives with Geordie Butts. We had no one really that we could swing back on Mackay. I thought Murray should have been retained. I didn't think about that. That probably was a weakness. Yep. Yeah, and as I said in the game day chat, there's the knock-on effect of that is that it actually kills Tom Diday's output. It takes away his weapon, right? And the thing with Murray is, he's unfashionable and, he's a bit hot and cold. He's also a new player into the system. But he'll give you a bit of effort, and he's not bad overhead. And, if we'd have had Murray in that side, what else could we have done apart from actually changing it up on Mackay? We could have also swung Murray forward to give Thilthorpe a bit of a chop out, because he was getting destroyed by a very good defender in Liam Jones, and sending Murray down there and giving Riley a bit of a break might have just broken it up a little bit, but we had absolutely no flexibility with our side because we went in with one key position defender. And I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, you just cannot go in at the moment the way our side's made up. You cannot go in with Jake Kelly and Tom Diday having to be nullifying defenders.
Well, that's a very good point. Actually, I hadn't really thought about it as deeply as you have there, because that when you made the point about it affects Tom Diday's game, and it did. It did. Instead of him floating across as an intercept, he's having to mind a man all the time. So it's an excellent point you raised there, Fiend, and I have to concede that you're right. The other thing, too, is that I also thought that during the game, they made a very, very big mistake in leaving Thilthorpe to be crucified by Jones all game. I would have actually brought Thilthorpe up onto a wing. And
I think they would have. Do you know what, Mac? I don't disagree with you, and I think at times they try to chuck him into the ruck. But I reckon Liam Jones had one job, and that was to teach the kid a lesson. And I don't think they would have cared where Riley played. And see, this is my point. If you moved Riley up to a wing and replaced him with a Nick Murray, then all of a sudden Carlton have got to make a decision. Does Liam Jones stay back on the tall, or does he follow Riley Thilthorpe? But because we couldn't actually push Riley out without going smaller in our forward 50, it wouldn't have made any difference to Carlton. If we pushed Riley up, they would have just pushed Liam Jones up.
I don't think they would have put him out onto the wing though, Fiend, because that's very foreign territory for him. So I think if we actually moved the small up there forward and put Riley onto the wing, and then had the smalls running around and spreading wide, it would have. I think it would have worked for us, and it certainly didn't work the way we were doing it. Because
certainly worth a try. You're absolutely right.
Because that Jones, that's one of the biggest pantsing I've seen a forward get. Jones is a very good player and a strong overhead mark, and he really
very underrated, but also the right build for Riley. Someone's got to get into Riley's brain and tell him to start attacking the ball in the air. He's great at ground level. Another amazing pickup. I think it was in the third quarter, right off his shoelaces. It was just ridiculous. But in the air, he's feeling for the body and he's trying to actually body work. And what he needs to do is just get it in front of his opponent and use his reach. He's not doing that at the moment. He's lacking a little bit in confidence in that regard. And someone needs to get into his head and just say, look, mate, just attack the ball.
That's a very good point, because he was actually also trying to stand there bodying him at times too. Because that Jones is just so good, just leaning into him with his chest and just then taking the mark behind him. He had. Look, Thilthorpe's only played about, I don't know, 7 or 8 games. So
yeah. I'm not having a crack at Riley. He's got to learn. We're just talking about observations.
And look, that's probably the worst pantsing he's going to get. And look, and he will learn from that. I'm sure he'll learn from it.
Yeah.
I would expect him probably next week to play a good game.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good thing overall we lost the game, and it's probably a good thing overall for Thilthorpe that he had such a bit of a hiding, because I think, from the point of view of winning games, I don't think we're going to win many more games, Fiend. I've gone through that, and I can only see us winning possibly another 2.
Let's talk about that later.
But the loss is not that. What I'm really saying, the loss, while it hurts because of the way we could have won and didn't, in the end, I mean, look at the big overall picture, it isn't that massive.
Oh, no, I agree. And the good thing from Riley's point of view is that he fought on. He played a bit in the ruck later in the game. He got up the ground a bit. He kept putting himself in the frame. He didn't drop his bundle, and he showed a bit of annoyance and aggression. And I just think, as I said, I just think someone needs to get into his head and just get him running at the football when it's coming in high. It's not helped though, Mac, by the continued terrible form of Shane McAdam. I think Shane McAdam has been gifted games over the last month. I don't think he's shown anything for a long time in this side. And yes, we haven't had a lot of alternatives. But young Lockie Gallant had another good game in the SANFL. And I would be almost thinking maybe we need to not so much reward Gallant for a good start to his career in the SANFL, but punish Shane McAdam for just continually not being up to scratch.
Yeah, the other thing too, which is says a lot. I thought young Rowe was probably the best of the smalls, that McAdam has been. McAdam's got more class and more skills, but he doesn't seem to have great desire.
Does he though, mate? Let's just analyse this a bit. Does he have great skills? I don't think he does. His tackling technique is terrible. He's a flaky shot for goal. He absolutely burnt Riley Thilthorpe in the third quarter when Riley Thilthorpe had run 2/3 of the length of the ground to be involved in a contest, and McAdam looked at him and then Riley was in the clear about 40 out. Yes, it was an angle, but instead he tried to kick it to a 2-on-1 further down. Just bad.
Well, I remember that incident very clearly, and if I was the coach, I would have taken him off and got a whip out and just flogged him for that because,
I don't think you can do that anymore.
shocking.
I don't think you can do that anymore, Mac. Maybe in the
Of course you
60s.
can. No,
Maybe in
you
the
just get him
change
behind-
rooms.
Take him down the change room into one of the private rooms to give him a flogging and send him back out. I mean, seriously, that was shocking. That particular incident because we got a lad who's battling, trying to get some form up.
Exactly.
And he's made the perfect move.
Yep.
And he did actually look at him. He looked at him and he
Yeah, I
went,
know.
"No, I'm looking." And then he just kicked it blindly forward. I thought
Yeah.
I can't say what I thought.
Matty Jones in the YouTube chat makes a good suggestion. Davis for McAdam. Benny Davis has been working hard in the twos, playing mostly wing and half back. But I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind playing Matthew Wright in the bloody forward pocket instead of Shane McAdam at the moment. And Matty Wright's injured with a knee, so
and he's not on our list.
So anyway, I didn't like that selection. I think it's time that Shane McAdam pays for his continued bad form. Aside from that, I think the only other one, and we'll talk more about individuals as we go along, but maybe it's time to have a look at Mr. Sloan. Anyway, let's have a look at some head-to-head, shall we, mate? Because one. All right, so some stats here. Disposals: Carlton 380 to 326, and a lot of that disparity was brought about in the second quarter when we just couldn't get our hands on the ball, and they just had racked up uncontested possessions and chains, and it looked like we had about 14 on the park. So a lot of that was in the second quarter. They really kicked it too. 244 to 136 handballs. We had 199 to 127 kicked a handball.
I'm going to say that the marks ratio tells a very interesting story too. And the way that the game was played by the different way between the two teams.
Oh, they pretty much kicked it all day.
Yeah.
And on a fast track. You remember that old game we used to play at training, and I'm sure there's some football players in the chat that used to play the game at training, where you had two lines of blokes from one end to the other, point post to point post, and one had handball and one had kick, and see who could get it down the other end first. And every time, if you're clean enough with your foot skills, the kicking you win every time. And on a quick deck, with reasonable skills, Carlton not the most skills team, but when they were running to support the way they were today, they just moved the ball a lot quicker, and we just chased after quarter time.
Yeah, well, in that second quarter, though, it's an interesting thing. You do a couple of good bits of play, and it just engenders belief in the other players. And players who ordinarily may not have been as good at passing the ball, they just didn't miss. They were passing the ball beautifully.
Yeah. Inside 50 is relatively even, 54 to 51 Carlton's way. Disposal efficiency also fairly even, just in the low to mid 70s there. Efficiency inside 50 wasn't really an issue. We certainly can't complain about the umpiring because I felt like we got a pretty good ride. 22 free kicks to 14, and boy, didn't the Carlton fans love that? They were going off from the first bloody bounce, Carlton fans.
I didn't think there were too many that we didn't deserve, though, Feen.
No, there's a few 50-50s, I thought.
Yeah,
I thought we got all the 50-50s.
We did, except for the last quarter. I didn't think we did in the last quarter. I thought we did. I thought in the first three quarters, I thought we got probably the advantage every quarter, but the last quarter, no. There was one particular umpire who didn't seem to want to join in on the fun, and I thought there were several holding the balls we could have gotten. We got none of them. Yeah,
just a quick question without notice from Scoop Malouk in the chat, asking which of our kids from the SANFL can run out an AFL game at the moment. Haitley probably can, although he's not in great form. Luke Pedler, maybe 3 games. I think it's 3 games back now, maybe 4. He could probably run out a game. Probably not all in the midfield, but it's certainly rotating in the mids. Not much else though. Braden Cook probably could off a half-forward flank. He's another one that might be worth considering, maybe for Mr. McHenry, who had an absolute disaster. But anyway, we'll cover that a little bit more down the track. In terms of our stoppage work, hit-outs pretty even, 30 to 34. Again, I didn't think Riley O'Brien was terribly effective with his hit-outs, Mac. We pants him in clearances, 38 to 22, but we just did not... They played that corralling game that Collingwood often play against us, and as a result, I didn't feel like our clearances sort of led to any sort of dominance out of clearances. I felt like most of our kicks were fairly ineffective or went to 50-50s.
Yeah, well, again, most of the time we got most of our clearances under pressure. Whereas, we never have that player at the back to shoot the handball out to. Never.
No. No.
Well, and I don't know whether our players actually even look for it. They always picture Laird clearing the ball with about two people trying to hang on and just dobbing it in the general direction of our forward line.
Interesting stat here. Even though we absolutely destroyed them in clearances, contested possessions was a complete reversal. Carlton 130 to us 117. They, after quarter time, or after probably that last 10 minutes in the first quarter, they just wanted it a lot more, and their midfielders were willing to run a lot more than ours were. Probably Rory Laird notwithstanding, and Harry Schoenberg, who had an absolutely electric third quarter. Uncontested possessions 251 to 202. Certainly, we've talked about that already in terms of their ability to keep the ball off us. Look at that stat. Turnovers, Mac, 57 to 74. That bothers me, and the usual suspects there. Marks, again, as you said before, 128 to 83, Mac.
Yeah, that was the thing that really stuck out to me. That they they seem to manage to find a chest so easily. We found it so hard to do so. But I think one of the answers to that is because their forward line did. I thought they played their forward line played extremely well. They played all wide of each other, which really meant they always had space to lead into. And when you've got that, it makes it a lot easier. Whereas we sit still too many in a clump. We get too many.
But Macca, I'll say this to you again, and I'm not being condescending, but what you saw was the difference between a team that was willing to run and spread and move the ball quickly versus a team that was pretty much going up and down the line. We didn't get a lot of spread. Exactly. And that's what you get. It's not the forward 50's fault, because we've seen when our midfield are working well and we've got good cohesion on transition and we're spreading the ball, we're moving the ball quickly into our forward 50, our forwards are able to get separation. And, there's more one-on-one contests, right? But when you're up and down the line, I think NT Rabbit said before he's named Paul Seedsman Nick Cave, which I really like. Do you get that reference, Macca?
You named him, sorry?
Nick Cave. Nick Cave's got a band called the Bad Seeds, and I felt like we saw a bit of Bad Seed. But it's exactly the point. If you go up and down the line, if you don't change lanes on transition, then what you get is congestion at the drop of the ball going forward. It's a very simple concept, and that's what we had today. We had congestion at the drop of the ball because we weren't changing lanes on transition. It's as simple as that.
Well, I agree with you, and I think really the whole side was guilty of it, not just if you're referring to Seedman.
No. I'm talking about the midfield in general. I mean, Rory Laird, for all the ball he got, straight up and down the line. Brodie Smith, for all the ball that he got, often straight up and down the line. Paul Seedsman dropped his eyes once and we got a goal out of it. Every other time it was straight up and down the line. Our transition players, Seedsman and Smith, and to a lesser degree McHenry leading up, and even you could probably put Rowe into that, Lockie Scholl. These blokes, they do not show a willingness when there's pressure on to be able to slow down, change lanes, and spread the opposition's defence.
Can't argue that. But that's how it is.
Yep. Contested marks 19-10. We got absolutely destroyed in. Marks inside 50. I should say 19-10. Contested marks 11-3. That's an absolute destruction. And considering we played relatively tall, it's an indictment on our tools. Riley O'Brien continues to disappoint. He's running under the ball, Macca, at the moment. Have you noticed that? Riley O'Brien, he's running under the ball.
Yeah, I don't think he's frightened. I think it's just a judgment thing, Fang.
No, I don't think he's frightening. No, I'm not suggesting he's frightened, but he's doing a Kurt Tippett. He's jumping vertically at the ball rather than jumping at the ball.
Yeah, I think it's just it's really a lack of skill on his part, because he's not an over skillful player. He's just a player that gives a lot of what he's got.
Yeah, but
it's not.
Part of what he used to give us was
lot.
4 or 5 marks a game. He's not giving us that at the moment.
No, well, that's fair enough. He's one of many, though.
Oh yeah, no. He's no orphan. That's for sure.
Oh, you talk about him though. And one that really worries me is Sloan. He's got how long has he got to go in his contract? The other 2 years. Well,
he injured a finger, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I agree with you. He was woeful. That's really the head-to-head. As I mentioned, Mac, terribly disappointing by some players who have been in the system for a long time to kill that momentum in that first quarter and just give Carlton a little bit of belief, because the way I saw it, Carlton were very afraid to lose that game. They came into the match afraid of another shellacking in the media, afraid of what was going to happen to their club if they lost, and they were very hesitant in that first 15 to 20 minutes. And then they got a bit of a sniff, and unfortunately away they went. And we know that footy's a momentum game, and even though we were able to wrest momentum back at various stages, we left too little too late.
Well, that's true, but we also helped create that momentum as well. Like that bashing somebody in the back well after the ball is gone and the 50-metre and a goal. Those types of things. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
That's the type of thing which it's a team killer, that type of thing.
Yeah, it is. Ned in the YouTube chat asked any positives today, Phoenix. There were a few, absolutely. But this is a game we should have won, particularly from the position we found ourselves in at the 15-minute mark of the first quarter. And we've given let's not forget, this is a couple of times now we've given away good early starts. Let's think about the Hawthorn game where we absolutely pantsed them and ended up losing. So it's a problem. And on a fast deck like Marvel, 2-3 goals up is not enough early days in a game, and it certainly wasn't enough today.
No, right, sorry, all I'm going to say is that, as mentioned in the chat, we've lost many a game by one bad quarter, like playing 3 reasonable quarters and 1 rotten quarter. And our second quarter, normally been our third quarter, but our second quarter today, that's as bad as we've played.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. All right, let's have a look at some individuals, shall we? And don't forget, everyone in the chat, if you want to have your say, give us your take. We might be talking crap. There's probably a good chance that we are, Mac. There's 14 people in the audience ready to tell us, so don't be afraid to stick your hand up, gentlemen and ladies, and have your say. We'd love to hear from you. All right.
Don't worry. They'll probably tell us some crap too, though, Pete.
No, we love our audience, Macca.
Oh, I do. I really do. Takes all the pressure off of us.
All right.
I mean, where's 1990? I can't see him. He's not in the chat tonight.
No,
And,
he was certainly in the chat during the game. He might be in the live search chat. I'm not sure, but I haven't seen him.
Can't see PJ Crows.
No, so it's up. We need some new blood. We need to we need to play the kids tonight, Mac.
We
need some
do.
new blood.
Yeah, look, we're looking for inexperienced players that have
Oh, there's
got these
1990.
skills.
1990's there.
He's there.
Yeah, he's there.
Anyway,
he's
a good lad. He'll trot up here. He'll trot up here.
Now, all right. Oh, and here he is. So let's get him on before we get into the individuals, because he's always worthwhile having a chat with. 1990, welcome aboard. How you going, mate?
Good, thanks, Phoenix. How you going? How you going, Macca?
Good to hear. Good to have you on board, mate. It's always good to hear you because it takes the pressure off of us. And you normally do a very good job, but if you get it wrong, they'll say you're talking crap to you.
It's a bit like a lecturer. Talking for an hour and a half. Eventually, you get a bit tired. You need the students to stand up and say something.
Exactly, mate.
Yes, I actually went to the game today in Docklands, so I was quite excited today. It was my first time I've actually gone to a game in Melbourne since I moved here last year, for a Crows game anyway. So that was good. I think going into the game, I was sort of thinking we'd be a bit 50-50 as to whether we'd win. But like you said, not too fussed if we lost, given where we're sort of heading in the back half of this season in terms of probably looking at the draft at this point in time. I think I sort of left the game pondering not to overreact. I think we played pretty poorly and yet still only lost by 2 goals. And there was a whole host of players at halftime that were, on 4 or 5 touches and we're nowhere near it. And particularly young guys. I think a lot of them, if you looked at halftime, a lot of them were a lot of our younger guys like Scholl, McHenry, Foggerty, and the like, and Hamill. And Schallenberg as well. He had quite a good third quarter, but I think when the game was there to be won in that first half, a lot of those guys went missing.
Yeah, you're right about that, because I had a look at halftime and I reckon there was probably about 8 or 9 of the youngsters only had about 4 or 5 possessions.
I got to say though, who were they playing through the midfield? Because I didn't see a lot of Berry in the midfield. I didn't see a lot of Schoenberg in the midfield until
it was Laird, Keys, and Sloan. They were playing
absolutely
90% of the time. Every time you watched from above, it was those 3 that were in there, and we did pretty well. You look at the stats for the clearances, stoppages, and centre breaks. You actually look at those stats, and we were actually going pretty well, I think. It was on the outside that we got killed, which has been happening all season long, particularly just with oppositions run and carry and overlap from the half-back flank to the wing. We just don't seem to have, I'm not quite sure what it is exactly, whether it's, because you can talk about speed and class on the outside to get the ball and deliver it to your forward 50, but you also need it to defend. So I think the teams that are cutting us on the reverse, it's almost I don't know if it's a tactical thing or if it's a players not willing to run to those 45 degrees and corral. Well, I think I've seen it happen time and time again this season. I think it's something, if we're going into next year, that's probably got to be the key thing we have to focus on.
That's a very good point you raise there, because I don't think we do have. They either haven't got the stamina or they haven't got the pace, because they don't get into that position where they can't cut across and cut through, and we don't have the ability to corral them. I actually made that point when I was watching the game, that they seem to be able to corral us, but we can't corral them.
You only had to watch it as we were going forward and versus them. It was chalk and cheese. We would sort of slow up towards that half forward flank, and they'd already have numbers behind, ready to defend and take in and high ball. Whereas the other way, they were able to run the ball and kick to that player that they would have open about 30 meters, 30, 40 meters out in front of goal. And Carlton's not a very good team, but we've seen that happen continuously over the season, and I think that's probably got to be something we've got to look at.
I think
Look,
terrific point you made there, mate.
I don't think it's pace so much. A lot of people in the chat are saying pace, and yes, we're not the quickest team going around, but the problem is that when the ball is rebounded out of defence quickly, you're always going to be on the back foot. You're always going to be chasing, and you're going to be made to look slow. When we're able to pressure out of our forward 50, and when we're able to put pressure on, when the opposition's got the ball, that transition is slower, and we are able to corral. And I would suggest that any team that is not providing forward 50 pressure and allowing the ball to bounce out as quickly as we did today for long periods of time, you're going to be made to look slow, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's personnel or if it's coaching or tactics. I think it's probably a combination of the two. But going into the rest of the season and next year, that's going to be probably two parts. Something we have to focus on tactically, but also look for personnel that can help us in that aspect. I know watching the reserves, Braden Cook, someone to look at. As someone that could come in and do that kind of thing. But I think the other thing I sort of noticed was that going forward, we seem to lack a little bit of control of the ball once we got to half forward, and then able to take that ball and kick it long, kick it inside forward to our forwards like Phil Thorpe, Foggerty and Walker. I think, what am I trying to say here? Effectively, if we got the ball on the wing, we had our long kickers like Seed and Seaman and Smith. They would tend to bomb it long to a pack, whereas I think we need to be looking at those 45s to someone 60, 70 metres out who can then pass up.
Couldn't agree with you more, mate. 100%.
Wow.
So I don't know who's out there for us for half forward. Typically, we've gone to Lynch in the last decade, but it's someone we need to look at.
Mac?
Well, I really haven't got much more to add to that. I think 9090's done a very good job with his summary. That's one of our weaknesses is exactly the fact that when he made the point about corralling us and we couldn't corral them, because when they exploded from our half back line, that's usually because we bombed it to just a mob of players. They get a break, they handball it out, somebody runs off, and their players are all spread and they've got an option and they just kick it to somebody and they can put it on their chest. So we really need to have the ability to, when it's in dispute, to have players that drop back and get ready to defend as well. So we were very lacking in that today.
Yep, and like I said, I've sort of walked away thinking not to overreact and understand that the things that we saw today, Nixie is going to evaluate and look at, and from a list management point of view, these are things that are going to naturally evolve over the next 12 to 24 months. So what we see today won't be what we see in 12 and 24 months' time. So it's all a long game at this point.
Yeah, and that's 100% right. And that's what I think the good thing about the way we're talking tonight. We are disappointed about various things, and that's because our expectations have risen this year compared to last year because we are playing much, much better. So when we don't actually do it to the level that we have improved it to this year, then it stands out to us. So it does show that we are on the right track.
I don't think we're expecting too much, Macca, because again, I feel like at various stages through the game, it was actually our senior players that let us down. And I don't think it's expecting too much of a senior player to be able to hit a target by foot or hand, or be able to play to a game plan or have enough fitness to be able to run to position to provide an option. I'm not buying it. Not buying that one little bit. It's not up to Schoenberg and McHenry and Scholl and all that to lead the team. It's up to Sloan and Laird and Brodie Smith and Paul Seedsman and these fellas to lead the team. And, we'll talk about individuals in a minute, but Laird and Keys had 63 of the most ineffective disposals you'll ever see in a game.
Well,
I was going to say those two are going to continuously get 60 touches a game for the next 12 months. Bank it in the book.
I'm not worried about that.
No, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. Or that's a bad thing, but that's the reality, and we've got to have players around them complementing the fact that they can get the ball, because you look at our list and we just don't really have those midfielders available who are going to be any better.
I'll put it to you, mate, as we wind this little bit up, I'll put it to you that we've been on this Crowcast since 2015 lamenting the same players going missing at key moments in big games. It's happened over and over again, and to my mind, a lot of these blokes have been good servants for the club, but to my mind, until they become either not key players anymore, but peripheral players, or until they're moved on, or until they're retired, we are going to continue to see the senior players in this side make mistakes at key points, because they are not good under pressure. They have never been good under pressure, and we've got a history of games that we could trot out to anyone who disagrees that will show you that this senior group are no good under real pressure.
I don't disagree. We've seen it. Look at our record since 2015. When we sort of had when we've had this period with this senior group, essentially.
Yep.
How many times have we actually played finals?
Yep, that's exactly right.
What, twice? Is it?
Well, it's not that much.
Twice out of 7 or 8 seasons.
Yep,
it's probably about right.
So,
and
they are proven failures.
We have had challenges during that period, and let's not forget periods. During 2017, we were unstoppable. We were unbeatable, and we had almost the perfect final series in 2017. But we get to a grand final, and we absolutely go missing. We've had other games where we've needed to win to gain ladder position or gain a double chance or what have you, and we've wilted. And I'm not trying to be unfair to these fellas, but this is fact-based analysis. The writing is on the wall, and you see it happen too many times with this group in games where the pressure goes on. More often than not, those players go missing. And I'll put it to you that even against St Kilda last week, where we came back from the death, even though we had a great last quarter from Rory Sloane, it was really the young lads that got us over the line in that game.
Definitely. It was the young guys that were definitely playing well towards the end. I remember Rory Sloane was quite good last week, late, but for much of the
only in the
first
last
half
quarter.
he was. Yeah, that's right. For much of the first half he was nowhere. So it's interesting when we talk about this senior group. I think you're right. We're not truly ever going to move on and upwards until we replace them. And I think we're close. I think we're getting there. And I think 1 or 2 more drafts and off seasons.
Yeah,
that's when you'll see that transition. And when we're talking about 2017, I wouldn't tend to agree that we were unbeatable. I think we were still showed flakiness throughout the season, and you only have to think of that game down in Tasmania where we. When they kicked 10 goals to nothing in the first quarter. So that was always there with that group. Now a lot of that group has moved on. So I don't know how much we can really attribute that sort of behaviour to the ones that remain. And I think we're only talking 6 or 7 players that sort of remain from that group as we speak. So it's a hard one to judge, but I think there's some from those group. When I think of Rory Laird, I don't typically think of him as someone who's quite flaky. I think he's consistent in his game. Someone like Rory Sloane, I do think is a bit could be attributed to the past. Taylor Walker, He's sort of one that's sort of keeping us in it at the moment, really.
Well, more Dot Sir makes a really good point in the chat. If Tex isn't leading the Coleman this year, we're probably second bottom.
Oh, definitely.
Anyway, let's move on. 1990,
Yeah.
Fabulous to have you on as usual, and we'll
well done, mate.
we'll just get the umbrella hook out and hook you back into the audience.
Oh, have a good week, guys.
Yeah,
I'm off
you
to the
too,
snow.
mate. Good on you,
Well
mate.
done, mate.
I feel like I'm in the snow already. And we've got Rabbit here that wants to have a chat too. Come on board, Rabbit. Always look forward to your views. How you going, mate?
Oh, not too bad, fellas. How are you?
Pretty good.
Very good, mate. Looking forward to hear what you got to tell us.
So I've got a question to put to you. I'm a player. I was dominant in the SNFL in my under-18s. Grew into my body early, so I was much bigger than all the other 18 and 17 years old around.
Darcy
I
Foggerty.
was in the early teens.
Yeah, Darcy Foggerty.
How I've turned into a tweener. Am I Darcy Foggerty or am I James Seller?
Yeah. Why not both? Why not both, Rabbit?
Well, that's kind of my point, because if you go and look for their stats, granted they played in slightly different eras, but they're pretty comparable.
Yeah, Darcy was disappointing today after a good start.
Well,
Wasn't really much of a good start, though, was it? I mean, he did his party trick. I mean, it's nice that he can kick straight set shots from anywhere in a league full of, as I've said elsewhere, a league full of half-wits who want to kick around the body from straight out in front. But that's his only trick. I mean, his 2 goals today, he got a really soft free kick, and then he was standing on his own as Carlton's defence all sort of looked at each other saying, where did he go?
Yeah.
well, he doesn't seem to understand the basic thing that a forward stands in front of their backman instead of behind him.
He doesn't lead, he doesn't take contested marks, he's not winning one-on-ones, doesn't crumb, doesn't run up the ground. Why is he still on the side?
Probably because we haven't got anybody to replace him.
Probably options.
Honestly,
Honestly,
at this stage, I'd get rid of him and put him and McAdam, who is awful, out, and bring in Cook and Gallant. But for 2 mediums, give some more space for Tilthorpe to work in.
are we trying to shore up a trade value, maybe? Oh, no, we've just bloody re-signed him, haven't we? That's not going to happen, Rabbit. We just bloody re-signed him. Oh, dearie me. Look, I've said for a long time... I've said for a long time, Rabbit, that I think that Foggerty has been mishandled and probably struggles with Texas longevity. But in the current configuration, it's the best opportunity he has had to function in our forward line. It's the best lineup we've had forward of centre for him to be able to eke out 2 or 3 goals a game, get up the ground, impose his presence, take a couple of marks, be that link player when it's his turn, and he's just not doing any of it.
I'm not sure Walker's even the problem anymore, because you look at what Walker does, he was never really a tall key forward, he was never a marker, he's always on the lead, but he's full of party tricks. Lots of little things he can do, like his field kicking, both feet and the snaps. I don't think Foggerty can do that. I just think Foggerty is the wrong size for the way he plays.
It's quite possible you're right, mate. Mac, what do you reckon?
Well, he's a disappointment because I think he's got the ability to be a lot better than he is, but he just doesn't play it right. He seems to be satisfied just to be behind his player or only level with his player instead of wanting to be in front all the time. That's the part I just don't understand about him. That, Rabbit made the point about Walker moving around. He goes here, there, everywhere, and Fogg doesn't do that. Fogg's just happy to stand there, and he just look. I think he could be a very good player, but he just doesn't run around enough.
He's only had 3 touches for the game, Mako.
Which is pathetic.
Enough. It's not enough.
2 of those touches were the goals that he got in the first quarter.
That's right.
And there was another incident. It was in the last quarter when Carlton finally started getting on top. I didn't see who it was, but Jared Healy started giving it to a Crows forward who just stood there and let his defender run up the ground. I think Carlton got a goal out of that, and I just thought to myself, it had to be Foggerty on the cabin.
Yep.
I think it was. Yeah. It was.
No. It's.
I mean, even Tilthorpe, he had a shocker of a game. Granted, he got smashed by Jones, but in the last quarter, he threw himself around and he had that turnover kick inside, which I hated. But he got up and he turned around and he got that kick to, was it Walker or I can't remember who it was, but he got himself into the game somehow.
Yeah,
Foggerty never does it.
Yep, no, couldn't agree with you more, matey. It's a worry. Is it the answer? It's starting to look like a big fat no, really. And like you said, there's a couple of blokes in the twos now that are just starting to squeak along. Lockie Gallant has impressed me, and Braden Cook's now really starting to just look like he's ready to take a step. I'd rather give them a look than look at the non-efforts of Shane McAdam and Darcy Foggerty at the moment.
Yes, so would I.
All right, mate. Thanks very much, as always, for your input. I'll shuffle you back into the crowd. You guys locked down at the moment, Rabbit?
No, I'm in Adelaide, so I'm not locked down at all.
Oh, very good. You're in the best place in the world.
Exactly.
Very good. All right. If anyone else wants to have a chat, go right ahead. We'll just have a look at a couple of key stats. I don't want to dwell too much on individual stats because I think it's pretty much superfluous, Macca, because like I said, Rory Laird had a good game. He got a lot of the ball. He, at times he was useful. Ben Keys got a lot of the ball. I thought Ben Keys was relatively ineffective today. Missed a shot that was very gettable.
Gettable.
Was that the third or in the last? I can't remember. That we just needed. We just needed it just to keep motoring along back into the game. Look, I thought Brodie Smith was okay today. I thought Paul Seedsman was okay today. Both did what they're in the side to do, which is to gain metres, but I actually think those two lads contribute, Macca, to this issue that we've got with forward 50 entries. I really do.
No, sometimes, but there are worse players than those two.
Really?
Yeah, I think Smith bombs it more than Seedsman does.
Well, I said Smith and Seedsman, so
yeah. I think he bombs it more because he's kicking from a little bit further back and he puts into that horrible position where you got to rebound from the half-back flank. Seeds quite often gets it in very deep, and so he's a little bit more forgiven for that. But it would be nicer perhaps to put on some of these chests. I agree with that. When you're going back to Laird and going back to Keys, I'm not going to really knock those guys too hard because they work very hard to get the ball. They get under pressure, and what they're giving, I think, is about what they can give us, Fiend.
I agree. I agree. I'm not criticising their games at all because without those two doing the grunt work in the coalface, we'd get slaughtered. Particularly considering that Sloaney really isn't giving a yelp at the moment for whatever reason. But we need have a look at the difference, and we're talking about, and I know I'm a bit of a fanboy, so just bear with me, but have a look at the difference between the work that Rory Laird and Ben Keys do in close compared to the work that Harry Schomburg does in close. Harry Schomburg was elite in that third quarter. Some of the ball movement that he initiated in that third quarter was elite, Macca.
100%, and some of it was ignored as well. He goes from very good leads from kicking off from points and the bloody ignored, and just bombed to the bloody packs, and then it come flying back for a goal.
Brodie Smith.
And I can think about
Brodie Smith does it all the time.
Brown was also guilty of it too, a couple of times.
Yeah.
And so, Schomburg, I can remember 2 and maybe 3 times where it was the perfect pass. He would have got it, about 40, 50 metres out, and then been able to go straight through the centre. And but no, we went straight out to the flank, and then back it comes, and they score. So my only criticism of Schomburg at the moment, and it's not his ability, and it's not what he does. It's that he's going to get a little bit fitter, and he'll be able to do it longer and more often in the game.
Got to get a lot fitter, Macca. He's got to. Harry's got to be in the game for longer. For us to get full value from Harry, he's got to be in the game as a midfielder for the entire game. His best though is if you think about a midfield going forward of say a Luke Pedler, a Sam Berry, a Harry Schomburg, and maybe a Matthew Roberts, or God forbid, a Jason Horn. That's not going to happen. But a player of that ilk that's a bit silky on the outside.
We need that.
Then that is what I feel is a good mix. At the moment, we've got too many workhorses and not enough silk in that midfield, and I think we've identified that before.
Yes.
So on that basis, you're right. Keys and Laird are giving us what Keys and Laird will give us, and we shouldn't expect too more of that. But it does lead to the issues that we're having up forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it does, and at the moment, you and I, we were guilty. We were amongst probably 99.9% of people that said Walker should retire. He shouldn't be playing next year. God help us if Walker wasn't playing up there this year.
Mate, bloody Nostradamus couldn't have predicted Texas' season this year.
No, it was a rebirth, mate. I think the good Lord's come down and touched him and reborn him. It's not the same Walker that we played last year.
No. Look, and more power to him. We've had lots of cracks at Tex over the last few years, but I don't think there's a person that listens to this podcast who wouldn't agree that it's great to see him up and about. And when he can get a clean lane at the ball, he's almost unstoppable. So, more power to him. It would be great to see him in his twilight years actually make an All-Australian team. It'd be even better to see him win a Coleman medal and be our second Coleman medalist, I think. Be our second after Mods. And you're right, Mac. I think it has been great. If you imagine, had Tex actually dropped off this season, and we had to rely on Foggerty and a young Riley Thilthorpe and, maybe someone else as a stopgap, Fisher Mackesy maybe, or someone like that as a stopgap up forward, we would have struggled to kick goals.
We would have really struggled. Because one thing about Tex, when he's got ball in hand, he's got a very elite brain. He's
very much a footballer.
I don't know how bright he is off the field, but on the field, he is really a great thinker. Yeah. When he's got the ball in hand, he really tries to do something with it.
Yeah. He's definitely a footballer. He's always been a footballer. And you wonder whether, we made a bit of a mistake by trying to make him a bullocking, forward. When he came to the club, he was fairly. He wasn't light, but he was certainly more agile. He was a bit laconic in his movement, but he was certainly more agile. And obviously the knee hasn't helped that. But look, it is what it is, and it looks like he might stick around for another season. And that's probably, given where we're at now, and given the question marks over Darcy and Shane McAdam, is probably not a bad thing that Tex is around for one more year in retrospect. Now, who else do we want to have a look at just quickly? Macca?
Well, I want to give. Look, I've been giving him ticks and I've been giving him pats on the back. So I have to give him a kick up the arse, and that's McHenry, because I think he almost individually cost us the game. Like he gave him that extra goal when by that bashing into somebody's back well after the ball was gone, and just 50 metres and gave him a goal and gave the momentum. And then in the last quarter, he dropped the easiest of marks when we were trying to make a comeback, and then the ball got ricocheted down the other end and cost us a goal. And look, you can't blame Ned McHenry alone, but look, I patted him on the back the last couple of weeks. As I said, I'm just kicking his ass this week. He just wasn't as good, and he made those critical errors, and he got rid of that stupidity out of his game, and then brought it back this week from that one incident, at least anyhow.
Well, the thing of it is, Mac, I think Carlton got into his head, because what we saw from Ned today was very much the Ned of 2020, where it was a lot of yap, a lot of aggression, and not a lot of substance. And what's been good about Ned this year is his ability to focus and actually do the team stuff. And he's been one of the few that has actually really tried to implement the game plan by looking for those little short diagonals and providing options and that sort of stuff. I've been pleasantly surprised by Ned. I'm not sold on him as a long-term option, but I've been happy to see his progress. But today was a step back, and it was all because they got into his head.
Yeah, and another guy I'd like to really criticise is Lachie Scholl. Lachie Scholl is, put it this way, there were several physical balls that could have been contested, and I didn't think he did a very good job of it.
Do we have another Rory Atkins on our hands with Lachie Scholl?
That's what I'm really concerned about. Because, my son was also over, and he said, he's bloody squibbing it. And I've got to say that there were 2 or 3 occasions where he could have actually put his body in and, he just made a little passage and let them run through. Not one of Scholl's greatest games.
No. Look, and let's not forget that he has been playing very well. He's a second-year player. Often the game catches up with players in their second season, so let's not write Lachie off by any stretch just yet. I think Will Hamill could be spoken about similarly in terms of just second-year blues a little bit, but I think Will shows a little bit of promise as well. So I don't think we're quite ready to put Lachie in the Rory Atkins basket just yet. But I don't disagree with you, Mac. I don't disagree with you. I saw a couple of balls that I felt he could have gone a little bit harder.
Yeah, and look, I've been a fan of Lachie Scholl, and I'm been disappointed. He had those 2 very poor games, and I thought the club did exactly the right thing. When they dropped him, they didn't play him. They rested him, which was the right thing to do, I thought. And I thought he would come back and with a lot of bounce in his game, a lot of determination, and he had a little bit, but it just wasn't the Scholl that was earlier in the season. So, like you said, maybe he just needs to get another season in the gym, build up a little bit more stamina, do a bit more work.
I think he needs more muscle definition. Both him and Will need at least probably 2 more pre-seasons, in my opinion.
I agree. Totally agree.
They're very, very light. And they get ragdolled. And it makes it difficult for a young player when you're used to being able to brush tackles. All of a sudden, you're not able to brush tackles because the blokes that you're up against are a lot stronger.
And the other thing about Scholl, look, he used to be such a beautiful kick. Now, in that last quarter, he's running into an open goal. There's nobody between him and the goal. And he kicks it from about 30 metres out and misses. And he could have bounced the ball at least 2 to 3 times and just kicked an easy goal. And
that's fatigue, Mac. That's fatigue, in my opinion. Mental fatigue as well as physical fatigue. I made a promise at the beginning of the season that I'm not going to bag young players. We'll call their performances for what they were, and we've done that with Ned today and Lachie and a couple of others. But this is a young team, and if we cannot say to the club, play the kids, and then bag the kids, right? The simple fact of the matter is that had our senior players not stopped the momentum in that first quarter, then our kids wouldn't have been under that pressure in the last. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, because I was going to make a point about Brown. I was very disappointed with Luke Brown as well.
Another one. Where's Luke Brown gone? I know he's struggling with Achilles, but he's running sore. He's got no pace about him whatsoever. We're not getting any rebound off him, and Eddie Betts until he hurt himself was probably giving him the runaround a bit. Him and Chase Jones.
Look, you mentioned Chase Jones, and look, he didn't do everything perfectly by a long chalk, but he was a lot better today. A lot better today. He did. Look,
I feel like he's starting to feel like he belongs a bit, Macca. But that play in the last quarter across halfback when him and I think it was, who was the other lad that was involved with it? Was that Lockie Scholl, or I can't remember who it was. But
it was suicide.
But again, it shows how tunnel vision Chase is. There was no attempted evasion or whatever. He just tried to barrel through, and a bloke who's 2'8" is not going to barrel through a tackle like that at any stage, let alone the last quarter. And I'm glad that Chase is putting together some better games, and he does look like he feels more a part of what's going on, and he had good periods of the game, but I just don't know how reliable we talked about footy IQ, and that's probably the query I have on Chase.
Yeah, in the chat, who said it? Sir said that Jones was better, but he doesn't think like a footballer. And there is a little bit of truth to that matter, because when he's got the ball, you can often see him go clunk, 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 trying to work it out. And it's not automatic reflex to do the right thing like the really good players do. No. And the one play that, as I say, I love this play. I love it at the Crows, but Merritt. You watch Merritt get the ball, and it doesn't matter what position he's in, who he's surrounded by, where players are. He can, with either by hand or either foot, get it to a player, and that's just his footy IQ, which is just massive. He does it in reflex in seconds, and not milliseconds.
But not everyone's going to be like that. Not everyone's.
No, but Jones. I was going to say, Jones is the other end of it, where he's going clunk, 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 thinking about it.
Yeah, a few people in the chat are saying Jones for a back pocket. I honestly think Jones is a task player, and given that he's got good pace, could he be a good small defender in that lockdown role on an Eddie Betts or whoever else?
And look at that. I think that's probably his future, because I don't know how much longer Brown's got in him, unless he's carrying an injury, because at the moment Brownie's not playing very well. Look, he could possibly take over that role.
Yeah, a couple of people saying trade Chase. Well, the problem is that you've got a situation where I don't think Chase holds much value on the market. And if you want to try and maximise your investment, and let's not forget the pick that we spent on him, and of course once they're at the club the pick's irrelevant, but if you want to get some return on investment, I don't think trading at this point is going to be worthwhile. I can't see anyone else stepping up in that small defender role at the club. I don't think we have any other quick small defenders at the club. I actually wondered at times whether Ned McHenry could be that as well. But at this stage, I think it's worth persevering with Chase in that regard. But I think he's very task focused. I think you need to give Chase a job every week, and the job cannot be creative. It has to be reactive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you summed it up very well there, Fane.
Yep. Let's not forget we got McPherson's too, but McPherson doesn't have any pace, so that's probably the knock on him. I thought Sam Berry. I'm just wondering, and I might actually go back during the week and have a look at the game again. Sam Berry, when he's in the play, Mac, he's very impressive, similar to Harry Schoenberg. I just wonder whether they're actually being put in the play enough at the moment?
Well, he wasn't in the play a lot today. I'm trying to. I can't remember, and other people in the chat will probably be better at me than this, but I like him going in the centre because I think he's hard, he's tough, he reacts very quickly. But I don't remember him being in the centre today at all. I'm not saying he wasn't, but I don't remember it.
Once or twice.
You can remember him being there?
Only once or twice.
Yeah, because
I think it was in the second quarter when they kept kicking goals because we were running out of rotations.
Okay, but I don't think we use him often enough because I mean I think he's a good player and he's a hard head and he'll have a real crack and he's clean with his hands, so that's why I wouldn't mind him playing more. At centre-backs, he goes back to half forward after that.
Yeah, the problem is, Mac, that we've got three workhorses in there: Sloane, Keys, and Laird. You chuck Berry in there as well. It becomes a bit one pace. I would like to see Sloane and Berry rotate through that, and I'd like to see Harry actually put into the midfield rotations and run off the bench. But NT Rabbit saying Berry is a Matt Crouch upgrade. I think he's a different player to Matt Crouch. I think he's more dynamic. He hits the ball harder at pace. He's extremely clean below his knees. Extremely clean. And his disposal's improving. So I like Sam. I just wish he could get around it a little bit more. But, hopefully that'll come. Yeah, as I said, Tommy today didn't have a big day because he was too busy playing lockdown. When he did get freed up in the last quarter, Mac, he actually was creative, and that's what we need Tom to be. And I think it's an area that I disagree with the selection committee at the moment. The way we're structuring up defensively, I don't like it at all.
Yeah, no, you're right on that one.
Yep. And that's about it, really. Geordie Butts got a bit of a toweling, but I think only part of that was his problem. And McKay isn't a bad player. Jake Kelly gave us the usual Jake Kelly. I don't know. I felt a bit for Josh Worrell only getting the one game, and apparently played really well in the twos. I don't know.
I hope they can do my business.
Hey?
Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I hope he didn't really perform in his one game in the A's, and he couldn't really hold his spot on that game. But and I'm pleased to see that he played well in the twos, which means that he's got the right sort of stuff to take it, which means he'll be back again soon. He'll have another crack.
Yep, hopefully. I think that's pretty much covered it.
So who's next week, mate?
So next week, who have we got? We've got someone. Let's have a look.
Brisbane. Yeah, Brisbane at home.
Brisbane at home. We should get absolutely cleaned up. Right.
Thumping, somebody says, yeah. Yeah, look, if Brisbane play like they did against Geelong, we got... Reading the comments, at thumping, we'll get flogged and smashed. So there's not a lot of confidence out there, Fiend.
Yeah, Matty in the chat makes a very good point, and good to see Matty Irwin in the chat, and nice to see you there, Madeline. Depending on COVID, we might not even have a bloody round next week.
Well, I would think that if I was the Brisbane team, I'd be trying to get down to Adelaide as quickly as possible.
Well, now here's a thought, and some 1990 has just put. You just read my mind. 1990. Adelaide, South Australia is the only COVID clear state at the moment. Why aren't the AFL scrambling to create a hub in Adelaide?
Yeah, I think as good as she is, Spurrier, she is, I believe, is the problem in that sense that not having a hub. A hub would mean a lot of dollars for South Australia. It would be very, very good for South Australia. But I think that she also thinks that it increases the risk of getting COVID in South Australia, and I know that she's very, very much anti-South Australia being a hub. Whereas, I don't know, I think once they've done their mandatory period, I can't see why they should be
who's
any more
against being a hub?
dangerous.
Who's against being a hub?
Spurrier.
Who? Victoria?
Spurrier, the health officer.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, and the government has never gone against her. So, or they sort of have in the way of letting teams come in, fly out. But yeah, she's anti the hubs.
Yeah, well, I don't like you said. I don't think there's anything wrong with a team coming in, doing their quarantine, living in a bubble, and playing games, even if you want to play them without crowds. For goodness' sake.
Exactly.
Bloody hell! If Formula One can go around the world conducting races with whatever the entourage is in that sport, and they can do it in a bubble situation to countries that have COVID cases, we should be able to sort something out in Australia, surely.
Well, as you say, we're the only COVID free state at the moment, and if I was Adelaide and if I was the Premier, I would be approaching the AFL and saying that bring your teams over here to South Australia and we'll be your hub.
Well, I don't think we're closed borders to Victoria at the moment. So I think there's a Victoria South Australia thing, but Victoria certainly have cases. I tell you what, if I was the VFL, I'd be looking very strongly at getting out of Dodge. Anyway, we'll see how that pans out over the next few days, because it doesn't look great in Sydney, and it looks like it's just sort of seeping over the borders into Queensland, Northern Territory, even WA, and fingers crossed, poor old Victorians, that they don't have to go through it again.
Well, Sydney's they're in for a diabolical week. I mean, the graph is just going up skywards, and it's going to take. Well, they've done the lockdown now for a couple of weeks, but gee, they really probably should have done it earlier.
Well, Gladys has taken great delight, Macca, great delight, in saying how well she's been doing it, keeping the borders open and all the rest of it. And I call rubbish on all of that. I think what's actually happening there right now is a consequence of her hubris, don't you think?
100% of her ego.
Yep.
She should have locked it down. Once it got about 6 cases, she should have gone bang then, because it was obvious, because of the fact that it been in contact with so many people, that there was going to be an explosion. I mean, 30 today, and there'll probably be even greater tomorrow.
Yep.
So, the latest does. She deserves it. Well, the standard kick up the arse I always talk about, anyhow.
Yep. Oh, well, time will tell on that one. Let's not get too political. Look, thanks everybody for joining us on Discord tonight and on YouTube. It's been a good chat, good lively chat as usual. Don't forget, if you're watching or listening to us for the first time, you can get on our Discord channel. Just go to our YouTube channel and you'll find a Discord video there telling you how to go about it. If you do want to support us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. We have, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Macca, we've had a couple of new supporters. Love their support and love everyone who's given us support over Patreon over the time, so much appreciated. Nikki should be back on board with us next week, Mac. Peter and I will be back on Tuesday night. No, can't think of who Peter's talking about, but he'll be talking about someone. And
about somebody.
Talking about one of the young lads. There's lots of good South Aussies in this year's draft pool, so we will be talking. And yes, 1990, along with Nikki's return, we will be coming back with the cock-wombling numbnut of the week. I'm going to go and watch Daniel Ricciardo carve through the pack for a podium at the Austrian Grand Prix. In the meantime, everyone, take care. It's been good. And we'll see you later.
And good night all.
See you guys. Good night.
See ya.